Andy,
Hello, am I first?
you seem to be, yeah.
I thought I'd be last. I've just rushed in.
Maybe
Probably
it's just
I'll,
gonna be. Maybe it's just gonna be you and me, and we're gonna have a face-to-face conversation.
Oh well, free consultancy.
That's it. Exactly.
Maybe. You all right?
Yeah, I'm very good. How are you?
Yeah, no, I'm fine, thank you.
Just manic as usual.
It's a good thing, isn't it? Kind of.
Yeah. I guess it's I just can't think of any trouble, so because I don't have time for it. So
Travel.
trouble.
Travel. So, what are you busy doing? Lots of different tests for everyone. Then, is that what most of your time is? It.
Most of the time these days, I just talk to a lot of people.
Hmm.
And it's just it's just unfortunately a lot of talk. So one of the things that I just had a meeting with Sheffield and NIAB regarding the trials that we want to run next year. So that was one more thing. This morning I was talking to people in Saudi Arabia. This just talking. Hello, Rob. And then this Janice, speak of the devil.
Hello, Andy.
Hi, Rob. You all right?
How's it going? Good, thanks.
So you're a Nuffield scholar, aren't you, Rob?
Allegedly, yeah. They were you could buy them in the old days.
All right. Yeah.
No, that's not true. Yeah, 08.
No, yeah.
08 scholar. Yeah.
Quite a while before me, then.
I'm very proud of being Nuffield. It's been great. Are you active with any of the groups?
There's a regenerative group that I haven't done anything with yet, but I will be. I wasn't around. It's just started.
I joined that too. It's yeah, I saw it.
Did you go to the last meeting?
I did. Yeah, it was quite interesting because I raised the subject of biologicals, and for a regen group, I never heard such a negative sort of hocus pocus response. So disappointed by that.
Maybe that's because people have tried some before and it hasn't done very much.
Well, I think that's fair enough, and I think Danny would agree with that. There's a lot of rubbish out there, and also bad planning or bad thinking.
Or people put it in bad situations and don't take into consideration where they're putting the biology.
Yeah. Hey, Doug. He's a proper scholar. He got it in the days where it was much harder to get them.
The same year as me.
Yeah, same year as him, despite the fact that I'm probably old enough to be his father, but
I don't think you're old enough to be my father, Doug. As my father's your godfather, so probably not.
That would be a bit creepy, wouldn't it? But I was at the very latest age possible to be considered, I think. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doug,
are you a climate champion, Doug?
I am, yeah. Yeah.
What does that mean?
So you can see that.
Well done.
What does it mean? I don't know, really. I got more votes than other people. So I think it's got an awful lot more to do with my sponsor and how active they were than anything else. But
who was your sponsor then?
Interagro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I haven't really been following it that much. Sorry.
Well, thank you very much, Andy.
You obviously got my vote.
I did suggest that you probably entered next year. So, yeah.
Well, thanks. I'm trying to avoid those things now. After doing the Farmers Weekly Awards 6 years ago, I've vowed never to do anything like that again.
Yes.
It's probably a bit cheap. It's probably a bit cheaper, that one. Farmers Weekly one takes you for a ride.
Yes, it didn't cost anything.
So basically, you have to buy a table, don't you?
Yeah, it's $2,000.
And then it's a great wheeze on how to get a load of people to pay for dinner.
Yeah.
Apparently, they told me they don't make any money from it, but I struggle to see how that's true.
You'd be astonished what they charge for that place, and then all the fancy rigmaroles with.
Probably.
My lasting memory of going to one of those was the £16 gin and tonic.
How many do you have?
That was each, Andy.
I was once asked to sponsor the vegetables for a similar thing in the Midlands. It was 800 people for one of these big dinners, and I said, great, no problem. And I said, where shall I deliver the potatoes? This will amuse Doug particularly. I said, what do you mean deliver? Well, we got bags of potatoes. I said, well, no, we want them in those little cut and ready, clean to go straight in the, and cooked as well, by the way. We've only got 3 people. We only got 3 people serving 800 people. What do you mean? So we just reheat it. So what was your budget for vegetables for the main course? It was 17p. So they weren't very keen on my dirty carrots and dirty potatoes, put it that way. So
No.
I didn't bother. But anyway.
Yeah.
We should talk about
good
soil,
turn.
really.
Yeah, John, should we let Daniel take over his
Yeah.
session on soil?
I don't mind. It's good to have, you know, some regular banter, you know, once in a while. This is the whole point. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining this one. It's as if I've never got off the call with Janice. We just had a meeting with Sheffield and with NIAB about these trials that we want to run next year. Janice had some of the most productive suggestions in terms of structuring the trials. So there's going to be 2 main sides of the trials. One is going to be the lab scale trials that Janice is going to be basically driving. And then the field scale that you guys would be more interested in. This is something that, you know, I was originally looking to do, you know, 50 farms across the country. I think that was way too ambitious for our capabilities right now. You know, the number of people that we have, even with the help of NIAB, you know, managing that would be way beyond what we can achieve. So there is a suggestion to limit it to 10 farms. There's a number of people who are interested, so I'll start reaching out individually to everybody, probably tonight or tomorrow, because we need to start basically putting a consortium together. And then one question during that meeting with NIAB and Sheffield was, how do we actually put the consortium together? Because the simplest way to do it is to basically say, okay, it's going to be Daniel, Sheffield, and NIAB, and we're going to have a list of farmers on the side named who are doing the trials. But then the question is that something that maybe the grant providers would rather see the farmers actually named as part of the trials? So the question to you is, you know, if you're interested in running the trials with us, is basically, are you happy to be named on the grant? And, you know, it's kind of would work the same way, really. It's just that there's more hassle with you having to put in costs rather than just me saying that there's going to be one figure kind of thing. So that's that to think about. So I'm going to put that in an email to everybody so that everybody's got clarity on that. And that's the update on those. So we just need to work out all of the costings. I know I've been tardy on that, so I apologize. This is something that you know, it requires more information always, but now we have more clarity, so we can start putting these things together. So yeah, the deadline for the grant is still the 1st of December, so we need to fit everything before that. And that's the update on the trials. You know, any questions to that? We can start with that, or if you have any questions to what the guys are doing. Oh, I can brag, actually. I can brag. If you don't necessarily, you know, buy it, but if you look into the Sunday Telegraph in the gardening section on Sunday, there's going to be a mention about us. So there's this bunch of guys, you know, in Hampshire making stuff with biology. So in the gardening section, Bunny Guinness has rung us up, so we're going to have a mention there.
Good, that's a reference we can use.
In the application,
Why not?
We are famous.
But why not? You need everything. You need anything and everything.
As seen in the Sunday Telegraph.
That's not a bad one, is it? It's not the news of the world.
It's like one of those website references, as seen in.
Well, yeah. Well, it might be a way to put it in. I would just like to say, because I probably won't be here after 5, time is of the essence now to get this together and get people who are interested on board.
Yep.
A really useful, well, probably the only useful point from the previous meeting is there may be a way to cook the books, as they say, where I come from. I like the idea of the rental, etc. So you need to speak to the farmers about that, because that can really help our situation financially. There's always a way around these things, and Elizabeth was really useful on that point. But we need to have names on a piece of paper by next week. End of next week is kind of a crunch time for us to cost and to get stuff on paper.
Yep.
Other than that, this is like my weekly pub meeting, so I'm just going to sit and drink my Ribena.
I'm sure it's Ribena.
Of course it is.
Yeah. That's right. What exactly is?
It just tastes like Shiraz.
Of course.
So I did sort of catch some of the previous one that I missed. And you know, it's nice to see people talking about things, and they're so interested in what you're doing. But we need to crack the whip here and get some flesh on bones, because the deadline is looming.
Yes, madam.
Thank you. I'll shut up now.
If you shut up now, it might be there might be an awkward silence.
Your silence is always the swift reply.
That's the one.
Who's on board? Who's on board? Come on.
That's the one.
Daniel, are you just doing spring barley in this trial?
Not necessarily. This is the one that's easiest to say. Okay, we've done a validation trial of spring barley. Let's continue with spring barley. But if you're doing, for instance, oats in the spring rather than barley, that's something to look into. If you're doing corn, maybe that's something to look into.
Yeah, we don't really grow spring barley. That was just my.
Do you do anything in the spring?
This year, yes, we do in the spring. Yeah, yeah. What it's going to be, it depends. So I haven't decided yet.
Any ideas?
Some will be linseed.
Okay.
Some will be beans. Possibly some will be lentils and oats together, and possibly some peas and oats, but I'm not overly keen on peas at the moment, to be honest.
It's interesting. It's interesting from the beans perspective. There's something else on linseed that I was thinking earlier, but the one thing that obviously you're supposed to be seeing is all that lovely nodulation. So is that something that you normally see already in your soil when you're growing legumes?
Depends on the weather and not all the time, no. Yeah,
so it is interesting from that perspective, for us to work on that. So keep us in mind maybe for if you are to want to grow that, maybe that's something we could design if it's a spring crop.
Yeah. No, it's just you've been talking about spring barley, and I'm happy to do trials, but I can't stand that crop, so I don't really want to grow it.
Why? What's wrong?
Right. Yeah. Why?
It's never. It always looks good and always disappoints, and I prefer spring oats for a spring cereal, to be honest.
When you say disappoints, in what regard? Just the yield or the nitrogen content?
Yield normally. We seem to struggle for whatever reason.
What have you been getting?
Anywhere normally between 5 and 6, which isn't enough, really.
That isn't enough.
Really?
And you've been putting what? How much nitrogen have you been putting on there?
No, I haven't grown it for about 3 years. You normally put about 80 on it. 80 kilograms of net N.
Because here on the farm, this year basically it was 150 kilos a hectare of nitrogen, and the best result that I saw was just over 6 tons. But it was between 4.5 and kind of 6.5. Very varied. The whole field was very varied.
Yeah. No.
So lentils, Andy, are you growing those as a companion crop, or you're taking those to harvest?
the idea this year was, this is the 4th year I've done it. This year is the first year we didn't actually get them to harvest.
Okay.
But it goes to Hodmedods up in Suffolk,
Right.
British grown pulses, for a premium. But this year, because it didn't stop raining, they didn't, they tried to flower and they didn't set pods, and the pods were rotten, and so it's been my best gross margin crop for the last 2 years, and we didn't get anything. But we did get 2.5 ton of oats off the field, so which was the companion, so we didn't do too badly, but we didn't get the lentils.
No.
But it's a high risk crop, that's why we don't grow much of it.
Yeah. So I was intrigued to when I came on the call, you were saying talking about using biology, and Andy, you said using biology in a bad situation or wrong situation.
Mm-hmm.
What do you consider to be the wrong situation?
Anaerobic compacted soil, I guess.
Yeah.
Thinking it's going to do some miracle to your soil. It's a bit like no-till, when people do no-till in the wrong situation, and as they normally get rung up at the end of October saying, can you come and drill a field for me? And it's the one they can't get in because it's drained poorly and rotten, and then they expect some miracles. But I think it's the same with biology. Unless it's, unless you put it into a healthy soil, I can't see it doing miracles, in my opinion, anyway.
No, I agree, and this is why it's such a challenge, for us to sort of come up with a way that we could make this work in sort of one season, because realistically we should be working at least sort of like halfway ahead of the season, with a cover crop and with ripping the soil and understanding what the soil structure is beforehand. And we should have the proper application of biology and establishment of biology in the soil, with a cover crop before we actually go in with a cash crop. That's like the ideal situation for us. We should be actually starting the spring barley now, literally, or even a month ago, actually, to actually have a cover crop on it over the winter. So that's would be our ideal scenario, but we're not in the ideal world. So we're going to, limit ourselves to what we can do, in the spring, see how far we can push it, kind of thing.
Are you doing a pre-planting soil assessment, biological soil assessment? Is that part of the plan?
Yeah, it's going to be pre-planting. It's going to be and we want to have an application of biology to the soil pre-planting. So one of the things that we need answering, maybe you guys can help us with this, is who's got equipment that already is fitted with injectors, basically something that we can run through the soil with injectors, because that's
pre-planting or at planting.
Pre-planting. Something that we can actually literally, rip through the soil and actually, apply the biology inside. And if not, we'd need to basically, and I don't know if it's possible for next year, but maybe for the following year, when we do it again, it may be possible, because we'll be better prepared for that technical challenge. Because the thing is, obviously, ideally we would want to have, if you're talking about a situation where basically this compacted soil, we'd really want to work on that compaction before we go in with the seeds.
The issue with spring drilling is normally the first time you can get on the field to do much with machinery is when you want to plant it. So you're adding another operation. You've either got to go twice, or how long before planting you want to get the biology on? This
is why I said it's better to start now, because then basically there's a cover crop growing over winter, and there's a chance for these microbes to actually have something to go on, when you're actually drilling. And that's again just our assumption. This is not based on our experience. This is based on a lot of other people saying this should be done. So this is something that we'd like to test, but obviously we can't test it this time. To answer your question directly, though, what we have seen, for instance, is we have seen biology establishing in about 2 weeks, at least part of it. So we would say, okay, well, let's basically give it 2 weeks, after drill 2 weeks after the previous application to the soil. And we've seen a multiplication factor of 200. So it is possible to do something in the short term, but we don't know exactly what effect it's going to have yet. We need more samples.
Did it not be sprayed on then? You can't spray it on what you're thinking of doing.
Needs to go in. That's the problem. So this is, this is a major technical challenge that I think needs to be overcome at some point. And we won't be ready with it, obviously, for the spring crops. But what we can do, obviously, is use the drills that have already been modified, and the drills, can have, or if there's other people who can modify the drills over winter, obviously that's going to be easier as well. Whatever we can put in is the best, yeah.
The only bit of equipment I can think of is either you go through the subsoiler, which you wouldn't normally want to in the spring, or you get a contractor that does that anaerobic digestate and put it on. Okay. Contractors who do AD, which is,
I guess,
but whether they'll probably be flat out busy.
Are you thinking of one of those that actually run fingers through the soil and instead of a dribble bar?
Yeah. It's like a trailing shoe, and it just cuts a small shallow slit in the soil and puts the digestate in. Mm-hmm. Then it soaks in, and they're normally 24 meters wide. The ones around here are, but that's about the only bit of equipment I can think of that might do it. But getting one that's free and clean, how well you'd clean between digestate and your biology, I don't know.
I don't know, because the thing is, it's well, for scientific trials. Question, because it would be useful to have a carrier for the biology, something that already has some sort of nutritional content for the biology to sort of use when it's actually being injected. I was thinking actually of application of slurry with biology, and I don't know how it would work yet, but this is something that would be useful to think about.
I think the issue you might find with the digestate, it can be quite high salt index, depending where it's come from, and the pH is fairly high as well. We add humic acid in with it to buffer it.
That's interesting to know.
I think it can have a pH in the 8s and 9s, the digestate.
That's a lot. Pretty much something that
it's not necessarily
no.
It wouldn't like, and they say if you put much more than 25 cube a hectare, you can kill all your worms. So it's obviously not. You've got to be careful on the dose rates of digestate. So I can't imagine fungi going in there would like it very much, to be honest.
No, but if the machine basically is rinsed out, and we put in, say, a mass of sifted compost, which basically is used as a carrier for the biology, that actually could potentially work. I just don't know if the sort of what sort of particle size we would need to go down to be able to go through that slurry thing. I mean, there is solids
in there, but I don't know what size. Sorry, I'm just moving. I'm just moving my where I'm sitting.
Cool. No, okay, thank you, Andy. That's actually very useful. Can you apply biology into the CC at an appropriate weather window? Andrew Wilson. What's, into the CC? Cover crop, that's what it is.
Cover crop, yeah. Yeah, if you're struggling for an opportunity to apply your biology at drilling or around about that time, can you put it onto your cover crop at whatever juncture you can get the material and the machinery? You've a much wider window to do that. Is that a better idea than trying to get 2 passes at a time when everything's at a peak?
I mean, the first application would be, you know, the easiest application for, if you're using a cover crop, would be actually with the cover crop if it is drilled. If it isn't drilled, the one thing that we still haven't tried yet is covering the seeds and drying out the biology and then seeing how it behaves after we re-wet it. And so if we could have a cover crop that's, you know, fully covered with the biology, if it's wet, then we don't have a problem. It just goes into the soil. If it's dried, we don't know how it's behaving yet. So the easiest thing to do would be to basically add the biology to the cover crop seed when it's being planted. But I think actually injecting into sort of, you know, deeper layers of the soil might be still a variable that we need to look into. It's something that we need to test. And so this is why at some point we'd like to have some sort of a ripping capability.
Interesting.
Yes. So I don't know basically, you know, what's better, and if we can just go about, you know, just putting a cover crop and putting the biology on the seeds and drilling it that way, and the cover crop, you know, as it grows, it will propagate the biology deeper into the soil. Yeah, that's the easiest solution. But I'd like to test that against actually putting in deeper, just physically. So that's another thing, because that's what we have seen done, and so like we'd like to test that. So
there's a few companies bringing out what they're terming biological seed dressings, which is an interesting idea, because you can prepare it out to season, I suppose, and get things ready, particularly for spring crops. Are they worth pursuing? Is there anybody got any thoughts?
I mean, in terms of preparing the biology, this is another challenge for us. We need to basically see what can survive the drying process and then get reawakened. And so we've already seen that, you know, the most delicate element is the flagellates. They have to be encysted before you start drying them out, because they need days basically to dry out, to encysted if you're drying, you know, a substrate. We're looking at different potential ways of encysting them to be able to you know, go over that problem. Then there's the case of nematodes. I'm not exactly sure what would be the stable condition for them in a dry environment. So we don't know how they would behave. And fungi, as long as we have spores, okay, yes, that's something that would be very, very easy, as long as they wake up afterwards. I don't see a problem. But a lot of what we're actually making is in hyphae, and so we still don't know if the species that we're actually cultivating in our compost can simply produce some sort of a happy form for the, you know, dry conditions. So as long as we can answer those questions, then we'll be able to prepare the seed and just, you know, drill it in. The most one of the ideas that was the most out there in terms of complexity is making is encapsulating seeds in sort of bowls of mixture of I don't know, clay and compost, and that is dry on the outside, but it's still live on the inside. And that's something that would then basically you drill that in, and that would have, you know, a very you know, the perfect conditions for both the seeds and the biology. But it's a technical issue, so it's not something that, again, we would be ready to provide for probably for this one. So the best thing that we can come up with right now is things like you already use, which is basically some sort of a dribble delivery of biology right after the seeder. So that's the only thing I can think of in terms of that. The other thing would be a deep ripper with you know, with a tube behind it with some holes, you know, delivering biology that way. And then a third one would be the cover crop. So that's the three things.
The difficulty is that you make things too complicated and too expensive that it becomes not repeatable at scale. And that's often a bit of a danger. We have to try and retain a practical element to what we do to be able to do it. And making extra passes and extra complication does make that more difficult.
How many times do you go out? Let's say if you're working with wheat, how many times do you have to go out in a growing season of wheat total?
With a sprayer,
Mm-hmm.
5, maybe 6 times.
So we're hoping actually to cut that amount to 3.
That's stacking much more savings. You know, that puts quite a different complexion on things.
So this is, you know, I don't know exactly, you know, where we're going to complicate and where we're going to save time yet. We need to, you know, again, those trials are going to hopefully provide us with more information, so that we'll be able to answer those questions. But yes, you're right. You know, we'd like to keep it simple, but these applications, you know, I don't know if we're going to be able to answer that question, you know, this time. Most of our applications to date were done with a sprayer, and the most complicated incorporation of the microbes into the soil were done with a harrow prior to seeding. And so it was literally just, you know, this much just to prepare the seed bed. And so that was all we could do. And so this is what we did. I'm talking about ideals, and I just don't have the answers for that yet.
Yeah.
But it's a very fair point. Absolutely.
It's good to hear that it's part of your considerations. Sometimes at trials you find things that aren't practical or legal or viable or anything else. If it's not repeatable at a reasonable scale in the sort of real world, then one must ask why it's been done. But it does sound like that's very much part of your thought process. So that's great to hear.
The thing that we're hearing, for instance, about the application to the soil. The application to the soil, you know, with a ripper, is that it potentially is just a one-off. And if there is a constant cover crop, you know, just mowed from time to time, basically, then you don't actually have to redo that.
No.
It's like on a year-to-year basis, you don't have to redo that. It's like you do it once in a field, and then that shouldn't have to, you know, be done again. So it is something that is, again, it's an unknown variable on a larger scale across multiple, you know, farming trials. We need to answer that question.
Yeah, I did some interesting things applying some consortium Z and bug boost down the back of some leading legs in front of my sugar beet drill this time, which is quite interesting. That's a work in progress, but quite encouraging. I only applied it to 5 out of the 6 rows so that we had a control, and it is quite noticeable, really. I'll hopefully get some. The crop hasn't been harvested yet, so we'll get some pictures in due course and have a look and see how we can do things better.
Did you say that's on sugar beet?
That's in sugar beet, yeah.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. What did you actually?
You know what? Sorry.
What did you actually apply? Did you say? Were you applying some biologicals, some compost?
It was consortium and bug boost by Simon Fox at Emerald Crop Research. I've been using the product in potatoes now for quite a few years, and don't use it as a defence against rhizotonia. used to use Amistar quite unsuccessfully for that job, and it's worked really well in the tasty. So we just repeated the exercise in sugar beet.
Would you mind sending me an email with what it is so I can have a look as well?
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I'll hopefully have some labels and pictures for you. Yeah, it wasn't really dribbled as such. It was a section of an old sprayer that we put on there. I have some pictures of the rig that we used between the leading legs and the beet drill. We didn't plough before sugar beet. It wasn't strictly strip tilled, but we did put flat lift through it because we know beet's not an enthusiastic rooter, and I didn't want a crop failure. So we're to try and strike a bit of a balance, but it has been quite encouraging, really. In terms of rooting and vigor early on, particularly noticeable. But the one field we have harvested isn't really the trial, but you can just about pick out the one of the 6 rows that it is. If you know which one it is, you can see the difference. But I haven't done any measuring or anything just as yet.
Right. Oh, sounds interesting. Yeah, if you send me what that is, I'm interested to have a look what you've got in there. Because I'm interested, to be honest, I'll be honest with you, it's, we obviously work very hard on our own biology. But one of the things, for instance, that doesn't grow in compost is mycorrhizal fungi. So we'd like to test out, products that are out there already, alongside what we do, maybe on some of the trials. See if that's necessary, see if that's something that will work better, see if that's something that is not necessary. So it's just any other products that are out there that are biological, we'd like to basically see if they can complement what we're doing. Can we do something more when we work together? So yeah, that would be very helpful. Then there's a question from Janice: is if the application logistics are difficult for a spring crop, would a summer crop be better for application trials, or a winter crop? That might be a good question. We're always racing, against time, and all of these preparations take time. If we're going down the route of the grant, and the grant answer comes second half of February, I believe. So we don't actually get a confirmation that we can start the work until end of February, pretty much. So yeah, we don't have a lot of time. What I basically like to do is to design these trials so that it's easy for you guys to say, yes, I want to go ahead, in case even the grant doesn't come through. So we need to basically do it in a way that doesn't hurt anybody in either case, basically. And so then we would be able to wanted to start the work regardless, and maybe cut the amount of area or spend. I don't know yet, but it would be better to start preparing as early as possible. I mean, we have to start preparing, obviously. In terms of the field trials, if we want to do a spring crop again, next year. What we're hoping to do as well, we're hoping to raise another round of funding, and if that happens, then it doesn't matter if we get the grant or not. And so this is something I'll be working on alongside the application for the grant. So hopefully we're going to have everything in line for the spring trials. I still think that it's worthwhile to do that. The work, it has to start by June 2022. Yes, Janice, the work has to start by June 2022 if it's successful. Although we won't have any. I don't believe we will have any large-scale trials available by then, because I think most crops will have to be in the ground by sort of March time to be able to have a field scale trial. Correct me if I'm wrong. Understood. Okay. in terms of Janice, in terms of starting work on your side, I don't see a problem with that. If this is something that we can start with you on at a later date, because it's going to give us more time to prepare, I don't see a problem with that. We could work with around the schedule that way. But in terms of the schedule around what the farmers are doing, I think they need to put in the crop as early as they can.
It still gives you 2 seasons, doesn't it?
With what you're doing, you mean?
No, 2 spring seasons.
2 spring seasons, if you're doing
Yeah,
on the farm scale, you need yeah.
Yeah, I mean, under control conditions, I can do it anywhere, anytime. Not anywhere, but anytime. So yeah, I kick off immediately, sort of thing. But obviously, crops have to have a seasonal thing. I'm going to have to leave now. Actually, I'm over. But all of the logistical input from the farmers here is so useful for designing the field trials and answering the questions that reviewers will ask. So I'd just like to say thank you to everybody. I will catch up with the recording, just because I make notes of everything, as you know. So see you next time.
Thanks, Janice.
Thank you, everybody.
Does it have to be a spring crop, Daniel? Can you not start? Start in the autumn, as in prepare? It gives you more time to prepare for winter wheat, winter, etc.
That's a good question. I'd say I might have to put my ambition and pride to a deep part of the pocket if we don't have all of the ducks in the row, basically, and say, okay, well, as Janice said, the work has to start by June 2022. Well, what does it actually mean? It could mean that we're actually starting to really, kicking off all of the preparation for, having the equipment, having the material, all of these things done over the summer, and we can start putting something in the ground, because we had been working all spring to get our side prepared. So yeah, it is possible to start with a winter crop. The logic behind me going for the spring crop is that we would be improving on the barley trial that we did here. And so this is, it's something that we go out to the world and we say, the only crop that we brought from start to finish on farm is a spring barley. Logically, for us, it would be to repeat that and say, okay, have we been able to repeat it? Have we been able to improve on it? That's where it comes from. But yeah, fair point. Any questions on actually making compost? Anybody making compost right now?
I've got a question on making urine. I don't know if anyone listened to John Kemp's base talk the other day, but he was talking something. Well, we did my extract through a free flow for structuring the water. I didn't know whether you guys have tested when you're extracting or anything, making sure the quality of the water, how much a difference that makes, structured or what's in the water. Is that something you've looked at? Because that could be a variable. As in agriculture with spraying, we get obsessed about the 0.1 a hectare of a herbicide we put in per litre. We completely ignore the 100 litres of water that goes with it. That can make a big difference. I'm just curious, that could be a big difference in extracting or brewing, is just the quality of the water that's going in.
Do you want to answer that?
I just didn't know whether you'd looked into that.
No, actually, we haven't looked into that. This is something that has been kicked around the lab, but it's not something that we had a chance to work with.
I don't know if anyone else has had any experience.
We've gone as far as testing the EC and the pH. So we know the dissolved solids aren't very high in our water and the pH is around 7. So it's not so bad. If you get really high dissolved solids, Elaine teaches that this will negatively impact the microbes. But
I know. I mean, I got the idea for the free flow form, from Joel Williams, who used to work at Laverstock. And when they were testing the brews that they did there, they always got the best brew from a free flow. And he said, flow form, sorry. He's saying because it just held oxygen. They kept testing the oxygen in the water, and it never went down. So the sort of the shelf life and it went to what it said it kept going. They couldn't get the oxygen to go down. They gave up testing it. So
yeah, with our pump, we managed to hit decent dissolved oxygen just in an IBC container or a cone tank brewer. So
yeah, he's saying it lasted a lot. The oxygen didn't drop off. About a week later, it still got the same dissolved oxygen. That's why they always got their best brews from the flow form compared to a brewer.
Because the vortex is pulling the air and maybe needs testing, I guess.
Just another variable for you, Daniel. There you go.
Oh,
just to complicate it more.
This is something that I've been actively pushing back here, basically, because it's one of those things that you know, there's a lot of hearsay about that, and not necessarily something that is core of the biology curriculum kind of thing. So it is something to look into maybe in the future. The guys have got the tools now. I had to spend 300 quid on the dissolved oxygen meter, so they can play around all day long.
Yeah.
So yours, I think you sent me pictures, Andy. Yours is the one that basically sort of like drops from one level to the next, right?
Cascade, yeah.
Cascading, yeah.
It'd be interesting to just try it out. Yeah. Where are you based?
Kent.
Kent.
I mean, I haven't got a dissolved oxygen meter, so
yeah.
Maybe I should do
in that direction. We will check it out.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but then listening to John Kemp the other day, he's saying if you're near electrical supply or you're using electric pump, it can upset it. So maybe I'm not doing as good a job as I thought, because we are next to an electrical supply and we are using an electric pump. But there you go.
Maybe
I'm not doing it by hand like the biodynamic people. Anyway, I can tell you that. I'm not spending an hour with going round and round and round, thinking happy thoughts and singing songs. I'm not doing that.
I'd be chasing the guys with a stick if they started doing that.
Yeah.
But, maybe there is something to work done by Germans on fuel in Messerschmitt in the Second World War, where they had these magnetic coils on the fuel lines and stuff. But anyways, I digress right now. Any more questions on actual compost, on actually growing out the biology, anything like that? Adam, how much fungi did you get? Because Niels, if you're listening to this after the recording,
is Niels here?
He's not here. That's the thing. He's not. So I'm going to send him the recording. I'm going to tell him to listen.
Yeah, I've knocked him off the leaderboard. I've beat the 14-year pile of wood chips with a compost pile, which is pretty cool.
And that was what, 18 months?
18 months, yeah.
So yeah, if you want the highest fungal component, you're going to have to go to Adam's driveway, because that's where he keeps his Johnson Soup bioreactor and feeds it with coffee.
Yeah.
And long.
Lots of other things.
350,000.
Is there stuff that we should be doing to our Johnson Soups to improve it over time? Mine have been there a year. I mean, it came back with reasonable results, but is there a way of improving it? I know time is one of the big things.
Yeah, I've added lots of amendments, dry kind of organic powdered amendments, which included, but was not limited to, frass, neem cake, seaweed meal, crustacean meal, basaltic rock dust, gypsum, and coffee.
Awesome.
Is that during the? Is that after a while, or is that at the start?
A lot of the stuff I just put it in at the beginning, like all the rock dust and the neem cake, the seaweed, and then because it's just on my driveway, when I've finished with a round of coffee, I just go out there and just throw that on the top. But coffee is used, you know, in mycology as a partial, like a part of the substrate to grow mushrooms. So I thought it could only help. Plus, I have this theory of driving the pile into an acid direction, so it kind of mimics the environment of a forest soil to wake up some of the spores, get them active. We don't really have enough data to say if that's true, but I feel like it could be.
So there you go. You've just basically got a secret worth 18 months.
Yeah, I do wonder what ours. I mean, mine are going to stay there till the spring now, which will be sort of 15, 16 months, and it'd be interesting to do sort of a test after Christmas to see if those improved. But it'd be nice to find a way to kick them along a bit as well. I don't know.
Yeah. I went to the woods a few times and just picked up a handful of what looked like it contained primary decomposers or secondary and tertiary decomposers, and just threw it in the top of the pile, just to inoculate with a bit of forest soil, or like the kind of interface between the mulch layer and the soil itself.
Yeah,
it's often where you find a good mix of different decomposers.
I guess it doesn't take much either.
No. But over a long period of time, I found as it's progressed, the more fungi, like the growth of the fungi seems exponential. Like the more that's there, the faster it grows. So it'd be interesting to test yours again, and keep testing mine. See, I'm going to try and leave it there for a decent amount of time, so go beyond 2 years at least with some of it. So we'll see how far it can go. But definitely maybe the ground dry amendments helped by just laying a nice kind of blanket of nutrients, like diverse nutrients.
Did you actually record the bulk materials?
We might have the recording. I think maybe of the actual, like the bulk of the parent material, yeah.
We just need to sort of like think of what was the roughly the same time we were making the first Johnson screw piles here. That's
for the high end we were using the alfalfa, and then we were using ramial wood chip, and then we were using a bit of like landscape chip and hay for the greens. That was the bulk of it really.
Yeah.
And then I put in like the all those things I said. I probably missed one as well. I think I missed oyster shell. I put in oyster shell as well. So quite a lot, but not like a huge amount, just a diverse mix.
So yeah, lots and lots of piles later, basically we find that the missing link to having lots of fungi is just the pile sitting next to Adam's house. That's all. There's nothing unusual about that.
It's a geopathology zone. No, I'm joking.
Any more questions? Doug?
No, all good. I'm just listening with interest.
Have you been doing any more progress on your carbon side?
Yes, yeah, quite a bit. Yes, so the first version of the UK Carbon Code is now out there and out for consultation. We've got a blockchain-enabled carbon tracking system is now designed and built. first version released probably tomorrow or the day after. So that's quite fun. So then we're just really registering projects and starting to open up the opportunity for farmers and land managers. Yeah, so it's all quite exciting stuff. Yeah.
Do you have any information on this posted on the website already?
Well, you can go to the ukcarboncode.org to see the carbon code itself. And further information will be published about how farmers can take advantage of it over the coming few days.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So yeah, it's moving on. Yeah,
Awesome.
Getting a lot of interest.
Andrew, any more questions? Both Andrews.
No, I don't think so. Thank you.
Simon?
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm busy doing something else, just listening in.
Yeah, that's no problem. Rob, any questions?
No, I'm good, thanks, Daniel.
Awesome.
Very good. Another great chat. Thank you.
There's one thing that's worth saying that sooner or later we're going to release a limited edition kind of gardening product, which is a refined compost extract. It's not just a gardening product. You can use it to bring your Johnson Sues to life and add some extra diversity to any piles you're making at home. So keep following us for that.
Yeah. That's some of the stuff we were showing in one of the earlier meetings under the microscope as well. That's the stuff that has got lots of beneficial nematodes. But anyways, thank you for the plug. Right, if there's no more questions, I think we've covered everything for today. So let's keep it short today, and I'll see whoever will be able to pop in next week, and I'll be sending emails to everybody regarding trials for next year. All good?
Very good.
Excellent. Thank you
very much. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Well done. Good stuff.